So, George, we've known each other 40 years. You and I know that. A lot of people don't know it, but we've known each other 40 years. And I'd say for about 20 of those years, you and I have bonded on Family Guy. Either
100%.
Being, talking about a line we heard, or did you see the one when Stewie did, or did you see the one when Herbert did? And the best thing about it, we love the entire show, but we always gravitated to Herbert, the Bruce, Consuela. Those are some of our favorites. And Cleveland, yep. And
greased up deaf guy. Come on, you can't forget
greased
that.
up deaf guy. Yeah, of course.
Apparently, Scott has a favorite,
right?
Okay. You never catch me.
But yeah. So we and it was that. It was Family Guy, Curb Your Enthusiasm, Sopranos. Those are the shows we always talked about, but mainly Family Guy,
and still do today. So go ahead and tell people who you got today. We are incredibly humbled, grateful, and excited to have voice actor extraordinaire Mike Henry with us today. In our opinion, he's one of the funniest guys on television. And yes, he does. He's well known for the Family Guy voices of Herbert, Consuela, Scott's favorite greased up deaf guy, and one of my personal favorites, Cleveland. Mike Henry, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you so much for your time. This is awesome.
Hey, no worries. I'm taking a break from doing nothing.
Aren't we all?
I appreciate the kind words. It's been a fun ride for 23 almost years now.
Is it really 23?
Wow.
Crazy.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. And you've got a couple of fanboys here, but don't worry, we're not like the cosplayer type of fanboys.
No, not at all.
So we're going to be, it's going to be a good interview. We're excited about it.
All right.
So Mike, both your parents were artists. So why don't we start with where you started? You went to college, your parents were artists, and how did that influence you and what you decided to study, or did it influence you?
Yeah, I, as we're talking about journeys here, I will give you a little bit of the shape of mine. My parents were both artists, as you said. My father was a sculpture professor at Virginia Commonwealth University. My parents were divorced, and my dad had a ponytail down to his ass in the 70s and was an art professor. So he lived a good time. My mother, on the other hand, was a portrait painter and Catholic. And I just... All I recollect was a lot of love and a lot of dysfunction. So I wanted to be a businessman. I wanted to push my creative stuff to the side. And so I did. And I went to Washington and Lee University in Lexington, Virginia, and studied history. And really just kind of sought normalcy. And so I would walk around campus in my shirt and tie, and I was class pres, and I was rush chairman of the SAE fraternity, and really had a blast today. I liked to have a good time, and I just decided I was going to build a great resume and not really do any work. So that's what I did.
That's incredible. I love it. And it's interesting. You say, you kind of left the creative to make a business, and you could argue that your creative is your business now, which
totally
is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. And, it's funny, since I left Washington and Lee, I have sort of been on a creative mission. I worked at an advertising agency for a short time, and then I moved to California to be funny. Mm-hmm. And that journey took me, into meeting all kinds of people and doing all kinds of studying improv at the Groundlings Theater, doing stand-up, later in New York, studying with Upright Citizens Brigade, and writing and performing in a lot of short films. I would collaborate with my brother Patrick, who was at the Rhode Island School of Design. And along the way, Patrick's one of his best friends in college was Seth MacFarlane. And Seth and I would crack each other up, and I helped him with the presentation for Family Guy, and he would help me pitch in jokes for the short films I was making. And, 8 short years after I embarked on my creative journey in 1990, Family Guy started in 1998, where I was hired as a writer to write gags, TV gags, cutaway gags, and create characters and do the voices for them.
Go ahead.
The thing that's amazing to me is that he went into advertising. Well, what was it about advertising that you didn't like, that you wanted to step away? Like, I know you wanted to be funny, but was that the driving force to make you step away from advertising?
Like, what was that aha moment?
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Yeah. When I liked advertising from the outside because I thought I could combine the business sense that I had learned dealing with people and sort of professional relationships, and also creativity. And, I was like, it's a perfect blend. I can make funny commercials and blah, blah, blah. And, I quickly realized that it's, for me, it was a slog. It was studying marketing reports and all this other, crap that I just did not care about.
Yeah.
So I had two aha moments. The first was seeing David Lynch's Wild at Heart, which is to this day one of my favorite movies. And, at the time I was really suppressing my creativity because I wanted to find a way to be normal and have a steady, stable career. But I saw Wild at Heart, and it was so outlandish and so crazy and so provocative and sexy and funny and absolutely David Lynch's vision. And I thought to myself, if this guy can do something this unique, this crazy, and be heralded as a hero, then I want to go find my way.
Yeah.
So that was one big thing. And I would say that same week, the company I worked for worked for US West, which is the phone company out west, or was. And some people were doing these mock-ups of some of the ads. And on one side of a magazine page, it would be a handsaw. And it would say, this is your business communication system without our product. And on the other side of the page, it would be a chainsaw with our product.
Yeah.
And then it was like a rowboat and a motorboat. And so I went and got one of the artists to draw up on the side without your business communication system. It was like a cupped hand. And then on the side with your business communication, it was a spread eagle naked lady. And so my boss was going through the comps before the pitch, and he got to that one, and he just looked at me and said, "Are you sure you're in the right business?" And I said, "No." And so
wow.
I just quit and drove my Jetta across the country.
Nice.
And started my comedy career.
So Mike, did you grow up a comedy fan? Like I do stand-up comedy, and I've told people a million times, but I grew up with, watching The Tonight Show. I'd watch all the HBO specials, the Young Comedian specials, the Mike Douglas Show, Merv Griffin, everything to absorb comedy because I wanted to be that guy in control of people. I thought it was amazing that they could stand up on stage and make people laugh, and all I could really do was armpit farts in a classroom to make people laugh. So was comedy in your was it in your radar at that time, or was it something as you got to college you picked up on comedy?
Right. Well, first of all, don't sell your armpit farts short because that's funny.
I know.
Yeah.
And
I'm good at it.
People can dress up things with intellect and stories and observations, but it really just boils down to farts and armpit farts.
Absolutely.
And penises
all things
and
ass.
breasts.
Yep.
All those funny things. But no, absolutely. I grew up loving comedy.
Yeah.
Steve Martin, Wild and Crazy Guy, was, was it for me. I just thought he was so freaking funny. And Chevy Chase was hilarious. And, of course, the Zucker brother films. And, I would always imitate my friends, imitate teachers. And, I would always hold court. And, a big moment for me was my senior year of high school. Every year there was a talent show, and I emceed it my senior year. And it was beautiful because I had SATs the next morning. So typically I would have had a couple beers, back in the day when the drinking age was 18. But I was stone cold sober, and I did very well. I was funny, and people were laughing at the right things. And that was a big thing for me. And I remember that night, it's however many years later now, and I still remember it as sort of my first taste of officially making people laugh when I wasn't sort of snickering in the back of a classroom.
Right. Were you one of those guys that, like myself, I was even talking with Scott before we got on air. I talked about how, I would listen to Wild and Crazy Guy and memorize the entire album. I'd memorize Delirious or Raw by Eddie Murphy.
Oh, yeah.
I knew these things by heart. And in fact, I have it right here. I'm in the midst of reading Born Standing Up by Steve Martin, which is an amazing book. I can't recommend it more for people. But was that you also? You'd memorize? Were you a prank phone call guy like me? Like,
I love that.
Is this you?
Many people come to me and they
See?
say, "Hey, how can you be such a swinging sex
And that's what 1978. He still remembers the bit.
It's great.
Yeah.
That's how ingrained it is.
I'm Joey Oxburger. My friends call me Ox. You may have noticed that was like, yeah.
My friends call me Ox.
Doctor said I swallow a lot of a lot of pizza.
Got a lot of weight. Got a little bit of a weight problem. One of my favorites. Scott, do you have that Steve Martin bit of mine that I gave you? Could you play that? This is my favorite Steve Martin bit of all time. We'll just.
I believe in rainbows and puppy dogs and fairy tales, and I believe in the family. Mom, Dad, Grandma, and Uncle Todd waves his penis. And I believe in 8 of the 10 commandments. And I believe in going to church every Sunday unless there's a game on. And I believe that sex is one of the most beautiful, wholesome, and natural things that money can buy.
That's one of my favorite. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that came off. That wasn't off Wild and Crazy Guy. That was off the Steve Martin Brothers album. But I love that bit. I mean, it's just genius to me.
It is.
Yeah.
That book, I've read that book a couple times, and I sure wish I had it back in 1990 when I embarked on my comedy career. I love, his breakdown of. And I signed up for Masterclass, and I watched his Masterclass about a year ago, and his whole attitude there was absolutely no punchlines in the act, but acting like everything he said was hilarious. Like, right. I get the joke.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I still talk about that because I think we're in a similar time politically and socially right now as back then, coming out of Vietnam and Nixon. The country was seriously divided, and he was just a breath of fresh air of nonsense.
It was.
And that's what was so desperately needed. And I would love to tap into that right about now. So I'm racking my brain trying to think of nothing.
Right. Exactly.
I completely agree. I mean, literally comedy you want to talk about, all the everybody throws around the term, we need to be united. Comedy will unite us.
It will.
It's fun to make fun of each other, and then you have fun, and then after you go out and grab a drink together or whatever, catch a game, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree. Yeah. So before we get into the bigger break, when you started, working as a writer on Family Guy, what were some of what was your first comedy show? In that working up into those 8 years, you met Seth, and then you had that 8 years. What were some of your first shows like? Was your first show I love hearing about everybody's first comedy show.
Yeah. I didn't meet Seth until 1995. So I met him
got it.
5 years into the journey. So I was in LA, didn't know anyone. And I found a room for rent on a bulletin board at UCLA, rented a room from this nice lady and her boyfriend. And I started the Judy Carter stand-up comedy workshop. Now, she wrote a book.
Yeah. Sorry.
And I did this workshop where you get up every week for 5 minutes in front of your class for 6 weeks. And then the 6th week is a show, which was at Igby's Comedy Club in West LA.
Okay.
And so that was my first official thing. And I got some decent laughs. I had a couple, I started doing the open mic circuit, and I had one nice killer show at the Melrose Improv, which was a big shot in the arm between waiting tables and, whatever I had to do to pay the rent, non-sexually.
Attaboy.
And so it's those, that there's nothing like that immediate response of laughter. And, it's great in conversation like we're having, but it's even better when you're on a stage, and it's almost like a clap. It's like a huge, you can hear the audience, and there's this sound that it's just like however many people in the room, just one big clap. And
I love it.
I don't know. That's a cool show.
No, I totally agree. I mean, having stood on stage, and I've told people, and it's so cliche, but it's like, it's like a drug to get up there. And when you get that, reaction or an applause break, oh my God.
I admire both of you guys because I think, a lot of what you've done is inspirational to others, whether they're in comedy or another industry. It's like you have to do what you have to do to get there, and you're not always going to be successful. But you literally, you hear it all the time. You do learn from those failures. You do your side jobs. You do your side hustle so you could support your main hustle. Yeah. And eventually, if you're really loving it and you're doing it for fun, which clearly both of you have done, other opportunities open up.
Yeah, they do.
Go ahead, Todd. You were going to say something?
Wait, no, I was just wondering, like, what was the drive for you to find this success? What was behind it? What was really pushing you?
Yeah, I think, again, having grown up in sort of a situation that I didn't want to live in as an adult, I was looking for, sort of mainstream traditional stability, and that just wasn't doing it for me. So I realized that I just needed to follow this thing. And I've given a TED talk and I've done a lot of college speeches and stuff. And the theme of it is follow your inner voice along a path to a place that doesn't exist until you get there.
Love it.
So I am all about following intuition, being true to yourself, your individuality. I spoke to a class at USC in the fall over Zoom about just that. They do an exercise, or they did an exercise in this class. What's your dream job in 15 years, and how are you going to get there? I take the opposite approach. Follow today, follow what feels right today, and see where it takes you, because you don't know what the world is going to do. And I always tell people that your life is a dialogue with the world around you. You can say what you want to say and say what you're compelled to say, but you have to listen to what else is out there, and you have to make adjustments. You can't just say, hey, I want to be president, and you're president. You have to figure out, you have to put it out there, and you have to start working and navigating and negotiating and figuring it all out. And I did some Instagram live interviews about a year ago in April during the beginning of the lockdown. And I talked with a lot of successful actors and musicians and athletes about their path. And there was a common set of circumstances or aspects to it all. One is listening to yourself, trusting yourself. 2 is taking the leap, doing that, deciding to go for it. 3 is working your tail off. And 4 is persevering as you're working your tail off. And then ultimately you get to that place where your hustle gig and your passion gig become the same thing, where you're actually making money doing what it is that you love to do. And that is sort of just the bliss. And then gratitude. What can I do to help other people? I'm so grateful to be where I am. And so I believe that if everyone just followed and was true to what it is that they really want to do, and could be true to themselves, and also respect what the other guy is trying to do and help him or her do that, that to me, that's utopia, but that just isn't the way it is. So I try to live by that. I try to do what I believe in, and I'm always trying to help, whoever's reaching out, if I can.
That's the premise of what actually Todd and I, when we started the show, we did it for fun because we both wanted to be talk show hosts. But the other side of it for me being Todd comedian, me being the talk show, I always wanted to be the Merv Griffin, I wasn't that funny, but I just wanted to bring funny people on and dive into more stuff, know. The show, we did it for fun, but we also did it because we wanted to have that purpose. And I think you just encapsulated that. I almost want to retire and give the show to Mike.
No, I know. He put it all in a nutshell. It's about perseverance, pushing it, and networking and working with people, which is so important. And I try to stress that to young local comics, how important it is to network, to get to know people. Like when I started doing this and working with headliners, I try to get to know them. Some of them don't even want to talk to you, but the ones that did, it's so important because it leads to other things, opening for other people. It's just so important that, those 3 things that he brought up.
And Mike, I have to imagine that, because already you just engender this like trust and authenticity, and you're so genuine. I have to imagine you're mentoring quite a few people, or you probably have a waiting list, right? To some point?
There are 3 phone calls that I need to make that I have a little list on here that are regarding trying to, help some people. And a lot of helping people is just providing encouragement and, giving them a reflection of themselves and showing them that I did a speech, a talk at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth, about 6 years ago. And there was a woman who was about to graduate, and she said, "Hey, I do production design for photo shoots, and there's an opportunity for me here in Richmond when I graduate. But, some of my friends are in New York and they're doing the hustle up there. And, up there, it's like a big worldwide international market. Here, they're doing great work and blah, blah, blah. Which one should I do?" And I was like, "You tell me, which one should you do?" She goes, "I should move to New York." I was like, "Move to New York." So people already know. And, I truly believe everyone, whether it's meditation or just when you sit in silence or when something externally that really motivates you hits you, what it is that you want to do. And you don't need the Wizard of Oz to tell you, that you have a brain or a heart or courage. Yep. I really just try to get people to listen to themselves and believe in themselves. And, all I can do is beyond that is give them connections, hey, talk to somebody at my agency, they might be able to help you distribute your film. I have no idea how any of that works, but I can ask this person if they'll talk to you. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's true. And that's part of networking. It's like, you don't know it all, but you know how to get people in touch with the right people. And I love just what you said. It's the encouragement, because it's almost like a dam. People have things dammed up and you just want to encourage them. It's like, okay, let's start breaking the dam a little bit and get some stuff. Let's just get some stuff flowing, maybe 1 or 2 things at a time and get you on your path. Because Todd and I both have gone through that as well. Listen to you. It's like, I'm a total comic book nerd, and I know I'm going to have like this most amazing comic shop one day. It's like, I love building towards that. And what were you going to say, Todd?
I was going to say, Mike, I had read that you before, Family Guy, you went like a year on auditions and stuff without hitting anything. And that must have, I can't imagine how tough that was and how it wore on you mentally. Is it something that you look back fondly on? Because I know it sounds crazy, but is that something you look back fondly on as a learning experience? Or is it something you think, oh, Jesus Christ, what was I thinking?
Well, yeah, I mean, I wish I hadn't blown all those hobos. I don't know.
No. You got to do what you got to do, Mike.
No, I'm sorry.
Flag the tape.
No,
I'm sorry. I was getting too serious. I do look back on that time, and I tell people all the time, it's darkest before the dawn. That is a real truth. And actually, my wife, Sarah, and I are, everything is relative, but we are still locked down and we are still living in COVID world. Yeah. And it is really frustrating. And, I was telling her last night, it is going to be so great here pretty soon, because this sucks so bad right now.
It really does.
And, that was 1997 on my Social Security statement. It still reads, in 1997, I made $4,000, and that was living in New York City. Oof. And, I took out cash advances. My dad helped me a little bit, as much as he was able to. And, that was just trusting. And that's another thing that anyone has to do is just trust. If you really are passionate and you are going about things in an honest way, and you are working your tail off, the world, all of life is one big organism. Okay. So I'm a big kind of big picture thinker sometimes.
Yeah, new earth, stay in the moment. Everything is everything. We're it's all this quantum. We're all in a quantum field almost.
If you keep pushing in your direction, the world will make room for you. And correct. I honestly believe that, and I've seen it a million times, and I've lived it. And that was a very difficult time. I had a falling out with some comedy people that were sort of the center of my social world at that point. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I went to this one audition down in Soho, and I was like, this is the one. This is the one. And it was making a pickle dance on a plate and doing a wacky voice. And it was everything that I hated anyway about advertising. And here I was, like, that was my last hope. And I just remember marching uptown in the driving rain, not even taking the subway, and just yelling up at God, what do I need to do? And, you know, pretty soon thereafter, I booked a couple commercials. I got a meeting with Lorne Michaels. My brother and I made a bunch of short films for him, and Family Guy happened all within like 3 months. So it was really, really, you know, I didn't know what to do. I considered getting a job in advertising. I didn't, you know, but I knew that wasn't right. So I just took a bong hit every night.
Good. Yeah. Take a bong hit and the world will make room for you too.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
Sometimes you got to just regroup. So
no,
I say that jokingly, but it's true.
I love that. And so here we are with Family Guy, which, I mean, people can describe it however they want. To me, iconic voices. So you started as a writer, but did you immediately get tapped to do a couple voices as well? Like, how did that whole process go and start to grow?
Yeah, Seth actually hired me to create characters as well. So it was
beautiful.
You know, I had never written a sitcom script. I was, I think, the only one, or maybe there was one other guy on staff who had not gone a traditional comedy writing route, you know, onto that staff. And you know, I was brought in to create characters. And I think that one of the first gags I wrote was the Good Times gag. Florida. Yeah. Why is my name Florida? Florida's a state. Or, you know, however it went. And, so I did that. And then the first regular character that I pitched was Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I pitched him in the writer's room as one of Peter's best friends. Yeah. And he worked well rhythmically because he was sort of, you know, more methodical in his thinking and more philosophical than Quagmire or Joe, like Peter. And so that was great. And then the group came along, and I was always pitching voices to do. I also pitched Ollie Williams, the Blackie Weather Forecast.
Oh my God.
I, you know, had no intention of actually doing his voice because he's a pretty one-dimensional character. Yeah. So I think Phil Lamar does him. But, you know, but the beautiful thing about the timing of Family Guy is I had my 10,000 hours in. You know, if you've read The Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, it talks about doing something for 10,000 hours and then you're an expert. And, you know, 8 years, and I did the math, how many auditions, how many stand-up sets, how much time I spent writing, editing, producing commercials, which I did a little bit along the way. You know, I was ready, and I was very fortunate that I had put in all that time. And all along the way, people would be getting together to go out to bars. And, you know, I had, you know, girlfriends that you know, everything took a back seat to my comedy drive. I just really wanted to do something great. Yeah. And, you know, I was completely driven, and I was very fortunate to land, you know, and get my major league at bat when I was pretty well primed.
No. Yeah. And I think that's really inspirational to a lot of people because, you know, we've talked a lot about how so many people are on that path of, oh, I've got to go to school after this, and then I've got to get this and get that. And it's like, to me, it's like, you know, there are plenty of people, and I'm sure we all know them, that have gone to like Ivy League schools, but haven't had that 10,000 hours. And then they get put in these jobs because they've been Ivy Leaguers, and then they either destroy a company, demolish people's self-esteem, and it doesn't make them bad people. They just don't know any different. So to me, it's like that 10,000 hours is so crucial to being success. And it doesn't mean that you have to do it in 3 years. You know, it's the hockey stick. You take it over a certain number of years, and then you hit that pivot point, and there you go.
And you shoot up. So, Mike, let's get into these characters. Let's talk origin stories. They gotta have an origin story. Every one that you've done. So let's start with Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland. I was right before Family Guy started. I was playing basketball at a playground here in Richmond, Virginia, and this guy said he was from Maryland. He was just real philosophical about everything, and you know, was totally kicked back and great. You know, you could tell the guy had a great heart. And I just thought I loved not just his voice, which was unique, but his philosophy. He just had a wonderful energy, like everything's going to be fine, you know. And so I just took that and ran with it for 22 years and did the Cleveland show. And last year it was it was time for that journey to come to an end, which I'll, talk more about at some point in my life.
Yeah,
but,
sure.
and then there was Herbert, I think, was the next, or actually the Greased Up Deaf Guy came next.
Yep, Scott's favorite.
Yeah. So it was late night. And in the first couple seasons of Family Guy, we worked, typically a TV show writer's room will start around 10:30. And that's what we did. And we worked from 10:30 until usually about 1 a.m. for the first couple years. Yeah. And it was great for me because I was single. I was, it was, again, that break, that sweet spot. And I was, I gave it my all. And so we were in a gag room, and, the writing staff, I think at the time was maybe 15 writers. I think it's over 20 now. But you have what's called a gag room where maybe 4 writers or 5 will go into somebody's office. You'll take a writer's assistant who will type everything that you pitch out. And, okay, well, we need a gag for Peter Griffin's, toy company family picnic. What's a game that they could be playing other than a sack race or ring toss or whatever typical,
Yep.
traditional things. And so it was late at night. We were all punch drunk. And I just said, hey, what if it's Catch the Greased Up Deaf Guy? And started running up and down the hall going, you knew we're going to catch me. And, it was, everyone just laughed, and we didn't know if it was funny because we were punch drunk at midnight or if it was really funny. And so, I think it was just so freaking weird that it turned out to be pretty funny.
Well, at the time, it kind of played into the whole, I know he's gone now, but Mr. Weed, the boss, that was hilarious. Right. Peter, I can't have you standing around here being eye candy all day.
No.
I mean, it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And then you added the Greased Up Deaf Guy. Brilliant. I mean, come on. That is gold.
And then Herbert. And Herbert was based on an old man that I worked at a grocery store with in high school. It was just a sweet old-timey fella. And sort of a little bit of, was a guy named Frank Purdue Chicken.
Oh, yeah.
Make a tender chicken. I don't know that he really spoke like Herbert, but he sort of had that folksy attitude. And so I just, come on now. I just channeled that guy. And typically when I would imitate the old man that I worked with, it was like just a pervert joke. Like you'd be taking somebody's groceries, like a tennis mom's groceries out. And I'd be like, hey, can I squeeze your melons? Just whatever. And then so I pitch one pedophile joke in the Family Guy writer's room. It was like a spark in a dry forest. And there you go.
Yeah. I mean, I may have texted you that night, Todd, way back when. I know I texted a few about the first. It was the Paperboy episode.
Oh yeah,
I'm looking for I'm looking for the Paperboy. I'm like, they're not doing this. Yeah, and I remember I texted about 2 or 3 people. I'm like, this is the best.
Yeah,
and I'm like, because immediately I'm like, oh boy.
Yeah. Well, look, he's never going to catch.
No,
he's the road runner. He's the road runner. He's never going to catch him. And if he did, that's the last thing anybody would ever want to see.
Exactly.
So, Mike, all the short cutaway gags, which are, they're 5 seconds of just, they're always dead on and amazing. They're brilliant.
So good.
How instrumental are you in those? And I'm talking the chicken fights, the Bowie and the Jagger dancing in the street. I mean, those aren't 5 seconds. Conway Twitty. What the hell? I mean, they're the best. Like, are you instrumental in a lot of those?
Well, what I was doing early on when I first met Seth, I was doing commercial parodies. Again, it's sort of a disdain for advertising and the sort of obvious thing that they're trying to sell you something through these little short videos that they show between quarters of a game. So I was pretty proficient at those. And at the time I really wanted to be on SNL. So I was writing and shooting, I did a parody called Dristex BM, which was like a take off of an old Dristan commercial where a guy can't smell an orange and he uses the shit and then he can smell the orange. And I did it with dog shit instead. And so I was doing those types of things. And Seth at the same time was doing things like the Philadelphia gag in his student film where Peter Griffin's at the movie Philadelphia and, anticipating hilarious Tom Hanks saying the funniest line. He says, I have AIDS, and Peter laughs his ass off. You're laughing at the fool, obviously not the AIDS. And So I think Seth and I sort of we were in sync on that. And you would have to ask him how much my work inspired the cutaways, but it was certainly in my wheelhouse. And that was sort of my specialty for the first couple seasons. And I didn't actually write an episode, I think, until season 2 or maybe even 3. Mm-hmm. So I was joke guy and character voice guy.
Yeah. I'm sure you and Seth realized this, but and I certainly did, and I think Todd did. That's why we appreciate it so much. It's like even some of the cutaways there, there's always going to be those people out there that I can't believe that this is offensive. It's like, no, you're not getting it. Like, they're bringing it to the forefront. They're giving the issue attention.
Yeah.
And they're showing the ridiculousness of people actually not understanding it and making fun of it in real life. And I think the people that get offended are the ones that actually commit the offense. And again, this is I have no scientific research on it. I'm just giving you my my 30,000 foot view of it. So it's like whether it's topics of AIDS or cancer or, like when you guys did the cancer thing, it's like when he's in the mirror and he puts the kerchief on his head. Yeah. Honey, come here. It's like, there's so many people, like, no, you're bringing attention to it. And yes, there is humor in that, not in the cancer, but the act, but it brings attention to the topic.
Sure. It's comedy.
I don't know. I'm Mike, maybe I'm reading that wrong. I see what you guys do, and that's why I find it so brilliant and actually educational. To a certain extent.
Right now. I think, Ricky Gervais said it great recently or sometime in recent years. Just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right.
Right.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
That number one. And my philosophy is, look, you're born.
Yep.
Every baby, you look at this baby and you're like, God, I hope this baby's life lives the best life of any human ever, and goes, somehow defies everything and has a perfect life. And then that baby starts getting shit on and, shitting on itself. And then, the world just beats the shit out of you. You're born, the world beats the shit out of you, and then you die.
Yep.
Okay. So let's just laugh along the way. Let's laugh at our differences.
Yep.
I love
racial jokes, gay jokes, things like that.
Yeah.
I have friends of every color and orientation. And when I'm with those people, we make those jokes and, back and forth at our differences, but we know we're bound by, love and, and the human condition. And, people that get too upset are upset about other stuff. It's not like they're upset about the joke. They're just looking for a way to vent and to do something about the injustice. And the world is, of course, full of injustice. And if you have a problem with your place in society or what's happening to you or what you've done, go complain to a kid with cancer.
Yeah.
So other than that, just go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right in the ass.
100%.
So, Mike, the show was started in 98, 99 ish, and then it's canceled. And you guys, how long was the hiatus till it was picked up again?
Yeah, we got kind of bounced around on Fox's schedule. The people who had brought us into the network left, and so we were just sort of hanging there.
And then the professionals come in.
Yeah, oh.
Yeah, they know.
Yeah, and then different things happened, and whatever, we got canceled. And so in the meantime, I'm like, I don't want to go write for a sitcom. I don't want to do whatever. And so that's when my brother and I did Kicked in the Nuts, which is
the best.
I
love those.
Parody of hidden camera shows.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do what I thought was funny. And that's what I've always wanted to do. And I've trusted that would lead me to, some financial security. And so, I think it was almost 2 years before the show officially was picked back up, because of DVD sales and late night ratings on cable.
Cartoon Network, yeah.
Yeah. And so then we came back with a vengeance to a 35 episode order, which is unheard of. And, and so we came back, but it was a gut check. And, the show was before its time. Honestly, I remember the first season or two, they would send the production assistants to the library to get reference material. It was before the internet.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it was right before the internet. Yeah.
So what point did you realize that like the Family Guy, how big the Family Guy machine was? At what point was that?
Yeah, what was your iPhone moment? You know, and all of a sudden the iPhone comes out, it's like, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom. Oh my God, this is huge. Absolutely. Like, what was that moment?
Well, the first 3 seasons, we were in a little office building in the San Fernando Valley, making each other laugh, and the show was going on, and we had no interaction with fans in any way. So we were canceled. And right before we came back, we did the Montreal Comedy Festival. We did a live table read of the Herbert, To Love and Die, and Dixie, which premiere episode. And we were in this, I don't know the name of the theater, but it was a few thousand people, sold out, 4 shows, and you would have thought we were the Beatles. It was like literally out of nowhere. We were like, all right, well, hopefully people are going to, we show up and people are like, just going crazy. And that was the iPhone moment. It was so gratifying and such a moment of hope. And it was awesome.
I mean, I can't even imagine what that feeling. I mean, these guys they went on Inside the Actors Studio as a cast with James Lipton, which, I mean, was that intimidating or was that a cool experience? Because I always feel like everybody's intimidated on that show. Or were.
It was very cool. And I literally didn't sleep the night before because I was flying up from Virginia the night before on the last plane out, which got canceled. So all night I was afraid I was going to oversleep. So I didn't sleep, and I took the early flight up and went straight to this studio. James Lipton was the nicest, most genuine guy. He was a mensch, as they would say.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah. I like that.
And was a super guy. We were out on that stage for 4 hours. Ooh. And it was funny because he loosened us up at the beginning. I think it was Seth Green. James Lipton just lashed out with well, fuck you. Like it just completely out of character for him, but just basically said, okay, guys, do what you're going to do. And so we got filthy. And, they asked me, what profession would I never want to be? And I said a glory hole attendant. It was, we got filthy. And of course he got himself out saying, the linchpin coming out of the dam.
Yeah.
But it was such great fun and such an honor to be able, to do that.
Oh, seriously. Cool. Yeah. That's so cool.
It is. And I know this has been talked about before, but I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it up just on the show has been for all the accolades. It's also been seen as very prescient. You guys called a lot of things out that are now that have happened. I mean, even for Bruce, Bruce Jenner. And I'm a comic book nerd, so the whole Iceman thing, that was great. And then Marvel outed Iceman. I mean, that cutaway was amazing.
Really? I didn't know that.
There's an amazing cutaway about, Iceman and the Triple X. We can get into that later. Right. It's hilarious. Right. But there's been so many great calls,
Well, it's all, if truth in comedy is not an original comment from me, and it's the name of Del Close's book about improv, but it's, everything that's funny is rooted in some kind of truth. And so, maybe we're just calling out some stuff before people were ready to say it themselves.
Exactly, which is amazing. So, my gosh, the show and it just keeps going, and it's quality for me every season, including the current season. So, how do you keep yourself going? Because you know how it goes. You do these shows for people usually like 8 or 9 seasons. It's like, okay, syndication, we're done, and you guys are still going. And how do you keep yourself going, keep it fresh? Because you do. And I really admire that. And I'd love to know if there's any tricks to that.
The thing is, it's fun, and I think if it weren't fun, then people wouldn't be as into it. But, I'm not writing for the show anymore. I haven't written for Family Guy since before the Cleveland show happened. Okay. Once Cleveland ran its 4 seasons, then I just am strictly voice cast on Family Guy. I'll still sit in some writers' rooms and pitch some characters out. But it's fun, and the world keeps evolving, and there's more fodder for jokes and stories, and people are into it. And as long as people keep watching, and I don't know why it would end.
Right.
for years, you guys had Adam West on the show as a voice actor.
Man.
I don't know how often you got to work with him. I'm sure you met him. What was it like? I mean, we all three of us, we grew up with that Batman TV series. What was it like working with Adam West? It must have been mind blowing. I mean, seriously, it must have been so cool.
Yeah. And Seth and Adam had worked together on Johnny Bravo, I think.
Okay.
Before Family Guy, Seth was a storyboard artist on that show. And so he had a relationship with Adam. And then, he was just so great. And he's one of these guys that is an icon, but he walks into a room and he makes you feel like you're the important one. And that is, he's just so graceful in that way. Yeah. And, just a huge heart and a hilarious guy. I actually got to give him a behind the scenes tour, which they did a video of, I think around 2005. And, he was just, that's the most, meaningful thing I can say about him is that he made you feel like the star when you were with him. And that's, that's magic. And, at my very first Comic-Con, I went out on the floor, and one of the first things I saw was Adam West and Lou Ferrigno standing there talking to each other.
Oh man.
I couldn't freaking believe it.
I mean, that's iconic. I remember, the Hulk, come on.
This is the thing with Adam West, the voice is so recognizable and it's so deadpan and funny. But Mike, I don't know if you're familiar with it. Like he did, Conan and Robert Smigel did a show called Look Well. And he was a private investigator. George, I think I told you about this.
I watched the initial.
Mike, if you haven't seen it, it's on YouTube. Check it out. Just put in Look Well with Conan and Bob Smigel. They produced it. It was all that. I think they only did the pilot.
That was it. Yeah.
Mike, it's fall down funny because you'll appreciate it because you worked with the guy. But check it out, and even people listening, Google Look Well and watch it. And if laughing's your thing, if it's not, go to hell. Don't watch it.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'll definitely watch it.
Hey, everybody. Hope you're enjoying this episode. I just want to take a quick minute to talk to you about Humans for Education. You can find them at humansforeducation.org. They're an organization that wants to eliminate poverty in our lifetime. Huge goal, but completely doable, and you can help. Humans for Education likes to create sustainable businesses in Kenya where people are microfinanced by the organization, create businesses that help support families, and more importantly, education. Please go to humansforeducation.org. That's humans, F-O-R, education.org, and sign up to become a volunteer, make a donation, and or join the Go the Distance fundraiser that's running between February 1st and March 31st. Sign up with your friends, do a 7K, raise a ton of money, and you'll be helping people set up their own businesses and further education around the world. That's humansforeducation.org. Thank you very much. So here we are, current day. We're on the other side of COVID. Like Mike, what's next? What are you thinking about? And I know we like to stay present, but I'm sure there's things you'd like, you've thought about things you'd like to do. We've had a lot of time to ourselves, a lot of time to think about things. I'd love to just, share with people, whatever you want to share, what you're thinking about.
No, I've loved being with my wife and kids, and have certainly seen plenty of them over the last 10 months. But like you, I have talk show aspirations. I love talking with people and hearing their stories and, just bonding over humanity and our individual journeys, et cetera. So, but I also love making fart jokes and talking in funny voices and, shooting absurd little comedy videos. So I have this basement thing set up in my basement where I am right now. And it's just a little studio, and I'm into sort of workshopping myself. I'm down here. I've figured out enough technical stuff to where, I have a little green screen. I can put stuff behind me. I can talk about jokes. I can talk about the journey. I can interview people on Zoom. I can show old Kicked in the Nuts episodes or clips from Family Guy or The Cleveland Show and talk about them. And so I'm just playing around with all of this, my past and my present and where I'd like to go. And,
okay,
I'm just sort of workshopping it. And
I love that.
Following my own thing. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm doing, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, speaking of workshopping it and working on voices, you said I'd love to have George do his Herbert the Pervert for you.
Come on.
Let's
do it.
Go ahead, George. Give him a little bit.
This is like,
He'll call me and leave voicemails, and to me, it's dead on. Let's hear it from the king.
I don't know that it's dead on, but that's what I mean. It's never going to compare. That's why. Come on.
Maybe a chat with Cleveland and Herbert. Let's hear it.
All right. A chat with Cleveland.
Well, he's Cleveland. So
yeah.
All right. Let's go.
I don't know if I can do much Cleveland. I'm not.
All right.
Oh, don't do that.
Don't do that.
How about Bruce? How about little Bruce?
Well, Bruce, that plays well to me too.
Yeah, because George is a gay guy in the room,
and I love it. Yeah. So I really say, Bruce, that's a mighty big mic you got there.
I know, Jeffrey. They've given me compliments on my microphone.
There's two of them in the room. We got some players.
Thoughts? What do you think?
It's not. I could do better, but
do it. Come on.
All right. So I used to, ever since the Paperboy episode, I was living in London working for a pretty big company, great company though, and we had this stockroom area, and the guys would talk about Family Guy in London all the time, like, oh mate, did you see this? Blah blah. So I don't know what made me do it, but I called the stockroom one day and I just was like, oh yes, I was wondering, do you have some of those over-the-ear headphones in the back? You know, the ones the little kids like to play with. Sure would be nice if somebody could bring some up to the floor. They couldn't get off the floor. And again, it wasn't me. It was me channeling what you've done, and they couldn't get off the floor. And like, who the hell? And then all of a sudden, I became this celebrity in London about doing that. And then, of course, I started, making fun of the bosses a little bit. That got a little hairy. But, HR, they like to get involved with everything.
You like to push the envelope.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. But, that was I literally got into it. And then it would just be random times. Even when I moved back to the States, I would call there. And as soon as they started doing Herbert, they would, it just, and it still lives on.
You were a star.
Well, nice. Thanks to Mike, I was.
Yeah,
was
right. Yeah, absolutely. I got one more technical Family Guy question, because it's kind of weighed on me because it was such an amazing episode. Were the Star Wars episodes? How was it easy to work with Lucasfilms? Were they accepting of the idea, or did you really have to push them on that?
I think it was something like, hey, can we do this? And they were like, sure.
What? And this was pre-Disney, right? This was pre-Disney buying them. So that was probably...
Well, it was Fox. And actually, we're the same company now, too. But back then, the beauty of... I watched The Last Mandalorian for the 4th time last night with my 13-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
The beauty of working with them was that we could use the music. Not only could we make fun of and animate the characters, but we got to use the real music. And those episodes are my favorite. The first one, I think, is my favorite.
Yeah, outstanding. And it had the real sound effects.
Blue Harvest. It was
Blue Harvest. Yeah, so good.
It was amazing. Yeah. Going back to one quick thing too, though, about where you are now. It sounds to me, and again, I'm not. Hopefully, I'm not ruining a surprise. Oh, I love that. Bring the dog in.
Hey,
here we go.
Dog. Okay, we're gonna.
And that was
dog action.
No, that was a hearty bark. So I'm guessing lab retriever.
Yeah, come here, Wayne.
Wayne, great name.
Wayne.
Yep, Wayne.
Let's see him. Is he coming? Wang.
There he is. Oh, look at that. Told you. Beautiful golden.
Handsome guy.
People at home can't see, but we're enjoying Mike Henry's dog, Wayne.
Yeah. Got it all except for testicles.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. But when you were talking about how, you're just kind of workshopping yourself, it sounds to me like you could be you could reinvent or even create or reframe the variety show. I remember back the Laugh-Ins, the Sonny and Cher show, the Donnie Marie's, all that.
Sonny and Cher.
It's like, I'll tell you, I could see Mike Henry just as you keep workshopping yourself, it's like, it's the new variety show. And I think it's needed. It hasn't happened since. It hasn't, or if it has, it hasn't really worked. And how do you bring it back live like that? So,
I'll try to figure that out.
I hope so.
Yeah, come on, get on that, Mike.
Mike, just figure it out. You're Hollywood. You could do it.
Yeah.
Anyway, Todd, anything else? This has been incredible.
I mean, I could go forever.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been with us way too long. He's been so generous with his time, Mike. And
I'm great, guys.
Yeah.
I'm peeing in this bucket. I'm fine.
Are you? No, that's well. If you're going to be that way about it, hey, let's talk about when you and Seth first met. I got a question about that. Were you guys? Was it immediate that you had the same reference points? Like, you know, when you meet somebody and you're just getting to know them, you find that you have the same comedic likes and dislikes. Was that instant when you met Seth?
Great one.
Yeah, I met him when he was my brother's good friend at RISD, and my brother would call me up and he'd say, "You wouldn't believe this guy. He imitates, he does 500 different voices, Johnny Carson and John Wayne and Robert Mitchum, and like all these voices." And so I finally meet this guy, and of course he's hilarious. And specifically, we liked a lot of the same things, but he was also very much into like show tunes and old Bob Hope movies and things like, that I just didn't really jive with or take to. And, but he would always, I would always get the essence of what was funny, like it was, we had a shared understanding or, common feeling of what was funny. So yeah.
So you did. So the whole thing, like you talk about the Bob Hope, like Bing Crosby style movies, that similar to Brian and Stewie to being together. Now, was it Seth who came up with that idea for doing those? Was it The Road too? With they're always the road shows.
Yeah.
Or
with
that
Stewie and Brian?
Or was that somebody else that decided for that pairing?
I'm not sure if it was. I know Gary Giannetti, another one of our writers, was also instrumental in that, and helped dial in on that dynamic between Stewie and Brian as, sort of, the buddies that foiled each other and were funny. So I would say Seth and maybe to an extent Gary Giannetti. I don't know. Seth would know for sure.
Yeah, we'll get him next week. Just kidding.
Yeah. Seth or Gary. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd love to get Gary. Gary's got a great book out too. He just reminded me I want to get that off Amazon.
For sure.
Yes. Yes, that is a very good book, and it's escaping me at the moment.
I can't remember the name. No.
I read it. It was funny.
So, Mike, I like to ask this question, and again, it's because I'm not a guy about regret. Regret to me is like you can't change anything. However, it's like when if someone was to write your biography right now, is there anything you'd want rewritten? Even if it's something funny, like we've had people say, don't get into credit card debt.
Being blown by a hobo.
Being blown by a hobo.
Want that right out of there.
Yeah,
that's the name of the book. Yeah,
I think he lost his hair.
He lost his hair.
Yeah, I've lost my hair. So no, man, you gotta.
I agree.
You gotta live, and you gotta screw up, and you gotta have shitty things happen, and that's how you get strong and get satisfaction by overcoming stuff.
Totally agree. Yeah, that's perfect.
Because you learn so much when you fuck up or fail. Yep. I mean, even on stage, I'm sure you do in business.
Yep.
You got to.
You have to.
Yeah. No. It's yeah. You got to go and realize that the run about Geppetto and Pinocchio blowing each other is not always going to be for everyone.
That's
right. You got to learn. You have to.
Do you ever improvise in the booth when you're recording, or are you just?
You have
sitting
to,
here
right?
with you. You're constantly improvising. When you're doing, do you have to stay right on the script that they supply you?
Actually, we're pretty tight by the time we're recording, so there's very little improv.
Yeah.
And actually, the most fun time, and I think maybe the heyday of Family Guy was seasons 4, 5, 6, when Seth was in the room and Alex Borstein was actually in the room writing, and I was creating a bunch more characters, and John Viner. There were other people who were writers that were also pitching, and so you pitch it all out, and you get it to the funniest. You tighten it right up, and there it is on the page, and then you just go recreate it in the booth.
Yeah, I would have thought there was a lot of improv, but I guess
there's not that much. I mean, you can a little bit, but it's
once it gets going, and you got
So George, if I was a Make-A-Wish kid, one of my wishes would be to sit in on a table read.
Oh, yeah.
It's always been my thing, and I'm sure people say that to you all the time. Just to sit in there for the brainstorming and watch people, riff off each other. That to me would be
I'd like to be like Bewitched, like Endora just could show up and be invisible. In. So I'd just be sitting up on the ceiling and watching it all happen.
You'd make a wonderful Endora.
I would.
Yeah.
I would. I've thought about it. Yeah.
So let's let this man go. We've had enough. Mike, you're
Mike,
totally,
yeah, I mean,
you're bored with us. And
no, I'm just not what. No,
I'm good. I'm
so grateful for your time.
Yeah.
We've been talking with Mike Henry, voice actor extraordinaire, one of the funniest guys on television, creator of so many wonderful characters. Cleveland, it's Scott's favorite greased up death guy, Consuelo Herbert from Family Guy, and just Mike, we appreciate the insights you've given. To me, there's so much more, and the insights you've given, and I hope you will come back whether it's your variety show, whether it's your book, whether it's another. We would love to have you back on and just get more insights. So much came out of this show today, and again, we're so small, we can't thank you enough. But we appreciate the respect and the encouragement. We really do.
Yeah.
No, I love what you guys are doing. I love talking about life and the journey, and I think you guys are doing something important, and I'd be happy to come back on once I figure out what I'm doing.
Awesome. Sweet. No, we would love that.
So Mike, we're going to wrap up, but if you just hang on a second, we just got a couple more questions for you off air, and then we'll be right back with you.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Peace out.
Thanks so much. That was Mike Henry, voice actor extraordinaire.
So how about that? Right?
Wow. You delivered.
I delivered. I
know. When you asked Mike,
showed up.
And Mike is the perfect example. He's like a sentinel of mentorship, leadership. Like you just help people along the way. You work hard. You do what you have to do along the way, and then you turn around and you're still going to do your work. But if there's a chance to help and mentor others, you go and do that. And there was just some key things that he said too. I loved. Following your inner voice to a place that doesn't exist until you get there. That was one great thing of the many that stood out. Being true to yourself, respectful for others, having the hustle, trust yourself, work your tail off, and while you're doing that, you have to persevere. And I'll summarize this in our posts about the show and everything. Yeah. But if I think our listeners probably got the most out of this show. All due respect to our previous guests, because there were great things there too. This really brought it home.
Oh, absolutely.
Talk about a brand ambassador. I mean, I can't thank Mike enough for doing the show. Yeah, this is great.
The perseverance he talked about, pushing it, networking, and it's and the one thing.
And it was funny. It was great.
It was funny, but here's the other thing. Like, he talked about how important it is to help others in the business. And that form of networking, I try to stress that with a lot of younger comics and stuff, how to, help each other out. And people do locally here.
Yeah.
But I think it should be more. A lot of people are like, especially in stand-up comedy, trying to push people out of the way to get to us. I'm so happy when people in stand-up comedy have success, because that only makes our business and our art form that much better. You can't compare yourself to them.
Only by helping others do you truly help yourself.
Yeah,
that's really what it comes down to. Yeah. And he's the embodiment of that and many other things. So fantastic. Honestly, fanboy, emotional, great show.
Well, that's your gayness coming through, the emotion.
Yeah. See, that's why we've been friends for 40 years. It's a classic example. Classic example. We could just give it and take it.
All right.
I'll let you interpret that one. Anyway.
You sicko. All right. Say goodbye, George.
Goodbye, George.
It seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV.
But where are those good old-fashioned values on which we used to rely? Lucky there's a family guy. Lucky there's a man who positively can do all the things that make us laugh and cry. He's our family.